Alright, welcome to the video. So today we'll be talking about Yanqing, who is a 5-star from the standard pool. Yanqing is very strong and has different ways to buff himself, which makes him able to carry the team's damage. However, I do feel like Yanqing is a bit overlooked because we do have another 5-star hunt character that's very popular. So I do want to make this guy to give him a little bit of spotlight. So without further ado, let's get into it. I'll start up with his skill. His skill does damage to one enemy and activates Soul Steel Sync. Soul Steel Sync is a buff that's explained in the talent. Whenever Soul Steel Sync is active, Yanqing gets a lot of buffs. I will just mention them all. He's less likely to be attacked, he gains crit rate and crit damage, and he has a chance to do a follow-up attack after he attacks, meaning that it can trigger from his basic attack, his skill and his ultimate. The follow-up attack has a chance to freeze the enemy, and if the enemy is frozen, they will take additional damage at the beginning of each turn. However, Soul Steel Sync will disappear if Yanqing receives damage. A thing to know is that Soul Steel Sync will not disappear if you take damage while you have a shield. This can make some characters very helpful for Yanqing, which I will mention later on in the video. You're able to see if you have your Soul Steel Sync up by this little indicator that will glow up if you have the Soul Steel active. Another thing to know is that if you use your skill without Soul Steel Sync, you don't get all these buffs until after your skill has hit. Now, Soul Steel Sync is one way to buff him, his ultimate is another way. His ultimate increases his crit rate, and if Soul Steel Sync is active, it increases his crit damage as well. Both of these buffs last for one turn. After you receive those buffs, the ultimate will then deal a percentage of Yanqing's attack to a single enemy. Unlike the skill that gives you the buff after you attack, the ultimate will give you the buff before you attack, meaning that you will always have this buff whenever you use your ultimate. His technique makes him deal 30% more damage for 2 turns against enemies who have 50% HP or higher. It's a very good technique, and if he's your carry, then you should definitely use it whenever you can. For the 5-star Lightcones, In the Night is a very good option. It gives you unconditional crit rate, which can be very good. However, you need to keep in mind that you get a lot of crit rate from your buffs already, so you might overcap on the crit rate, but it shouldn't really matter that much. And for every 10 speed that you exceed over 100, you will get basic attack and skill damage increase, as well as crit damage increase on the ultimate, stacking up to 6 times. This is definitely a very good option for any hunt character there is. So if you have this one, you can definitely use this one. Sleep Like the Dead is his signature Lightcone. It's a 5-star one that you get from the standard pool. It increases your crit damage unconditionally, which is very good. And then if your basic attack or skill does not crit, you will get a crit rate increase for 1 turn. And that can only trigger once every 3 turns. This is definitely a very strong Lightcone because you do already get a lot of crit rate from all the buffs that he gives himself. So the crit damage is definitely very nice. And the crit rate increase is definitely very good for the consistency of the skill damage. Cruising in the Stellar Sea is a free 5-star Lightcone that you get in the Herta shop. It increases your crit rate, and then if you're against an enemy who is lower or equal to 50% HP, you will gain another crit rate increase. Then if you defeat an enemy, you will get an attack increase for 2 turns. The crit rate is definitely very good, but like I said before, you might cap out on the crit rate because of all the buffs that you get, but it can still be nice. In my opinion, the attack increase is actually very good because you do get a lot of crit buffs already, so the attack increase can definitely help out a lot more. For the 4-star Lightcones, River Flows in Spring is pretty decent. It's a free-to-play 4-star Lightcone that you're able to buy in a shop. When you enter battle, it increases your speed and damage, and whenever you take damage, this buff will disappear. If you're able to build the team around Yanqing, you can maintain the Soul Steel Sync and this Lightcone buff very consistently, which can make this Lightcone very good. Swordplay is also very good. Each time you hit the same target, the damage against that target will be increased, stacking up to 5 times. And if you change the target, then those stacks will disappear. This is very good, so if you have it, you can definitely use this one as well. Return to Darkness is a Battle Pass Lightcone, meaning that you can only get it from the Battle Pass. It increases your crit rate unconditionally, and then after you crit, there is a chance for you to dispel 1 buff on the target, and that can only trigger 1 time per attack. In my opinion, it's a bit underwhelming on Yanqing, but if you have it built, you can definitely use this one if you want to. Only Silence Remains is pretty decent, and the one that I'm actually using. because I already have it built and because I'm using my 5-star Lightcone on my other hunt character. It increases your attack unconditionally, and if there's 2 or fewer enemies on the field, then it will increase your crit rate. Like I said before, the attack increase can be very valuable if you have a lot of crit value on him already. I do want to say that this is definitely not the best Lightcone there is, but if you have this one, you can definitely use it. In my opinion, Subscribe for More is the worst one for Yanqing. It increases the damage for your basic attack and skill, and it will then increase your damage even more if you have max energy. Usually you do want to just use his ultimate whenever you can, so you don't get the second part of the passive that often. But also a lot of his damage comes from his ultimate, so it's a bit of a shame that it doesn't buff his ultimate damage. But since the resources in this game are very limited at the moment, if you have this one built already, you can use this one if you want to. Now for the 3-star Lightcones, I would not recommend using any of them since you do have a free to play option, but if you really want to use one, then I think Arrows is pretty decent. Overall, he has a lot of great options, so if you have any of these Lightcones built, you should definitely just use it on him. So for Yanqing's traces, in my opinion, you should level up the talent and ultimate as the priority, since both of them gives him a huge buff, which is a very important part of his kit, and also plays a very big role in terms of his damage. The skill can also be very important, but mostly you just use it to activate the Soul Steel Sync. However, after you have leveled up the talent and ultimate, the skill can definitely be a good choice after that. Since we don't have a lot of materials at the moment, I think that you should skip the basic attack, but of course if you really want to, you can level it up as well. The reason you want to prioritize the ultimate and the talent is because if we take a look at the talent, whenever you level the talent, you increase the crit rate, you also increase the crit damage, and you increase the chance to do a follow-up attack, as well as the damage dealt by the follow-up attack, and also the additional damage you do if the target is frozen. So you do get a lot of stats and damage increase from the talent alone, which is why you want to prioritize it. And if we take a look at the ultimate, for each level, the crit damage increase will be higher, and of course the damage is also getting increased, which is why you want to prioritize the talent and ultimate. So let's take a look at his bonus abilities. This one will make Yanqing deal additional ice damage equal to 30% of his attack to enemies with ice weakness whenever Yanqing attacks. That's very good for the damage, of course. This one gives you increased effect resistance by 20% whenever you have Soul Steel Sync active. This can be decent, but it's probably the worst one out of the 3. And this one gives you 10% increased speed for 2 turns whenever you crit, which you will do most of the time, so this can be a permanent speed buff. This can definitely help, but if you have someone that you want to use before Yanqing so that you can buff him, then this can be a bit of a problem, but it shouldn't really matter that much. Overall, his bonus abilities are pretty decent, but if you want to prioritize one, then icing on the kick is definitely the best one. Keep in mind that you do need to unlock all of these bonus abilities if you want to get these additional stats. For the Relics, Hunter of the Glacial Forest is the best option. It gives you ice damage and it gives you crit damage after you use your ultimate. You can also use 2-piece Musketeer of the Wild Weed and a 2-piece Hunter of the Glacial Forest. Or if you're like me and haven't found relics yet, then you can use a 4-piece Wild Weed. Out of these 3 options, the 4-piece Wild Weed is probably the worst one, however it will still suffice. For the ornaments, I think that Inner Salsodo is his best option. It gives you increased crit rate, and if your crit rate is 50% or higher, then you get increased follow-up and ultimate damage. That can be very easy to get because you do get 60% crit rate on your ultimate. And keep in mind that whenever he has Soul Steel Sync active, he can do follow-up attacks. So Yanqing is easily able to make use of the whole passive. If you don't have the Inner Salsodo, then you can use the Space Sealing Station, which can be very decent as well. It gives you increased attack, and if your speed is 120 or above, then you get another attack increase. This can be very decent, however I do still think that Inner Salsodo is the better option. If we quickly take a look at the stats, in my opinion your body piece should be crit damage, since you do already get a lot of crit rate from your ultimate buff and Soul Steel Sync as well, so you don't want to cap out on the crit rate. For the boots, I think that attack is the better option, but if you have a lot of attack percentage on the substats, then you can go speed on the boots, and vice versa of course. For the main stats on the ornaments, it should be ice damage on the sphere, and it should be attack on the link rope. For the substats, crit is the best option, followed up by attack and then speed, and then effect hit rate can be useful as well if you do want to be able to freeze the enemy with his follow-up attack. However, crit and attack is definitely the most important ones. For the Eidolons, they're definitely good but not needed, and I highly doubt that a lot of people have him E6, but I will just quickly go over them all. For his E1, whenever he attacks a frozen enemy, he deals additional ice damage equal to 60% of his attack. attack. For his E2, whenever Soul Steel Sync is active, he gets an extra 10% energy regeneration rate. His E3 levels up his skill 2 times and his basic attack 1 time. For his E4, whenever his HP is 80% or higher, he gets increased ice resistance penetration by 12%. His E5 levels up his ultimate 2 times and his talent 2 times. For his E6, if he has his ultimate buffs and defeats an enemy, then the duration will be extended by 1 turn. His Eidolons are very damage oriented, which is of course very good. However, like I said before, they are definitely not needed. I will go over some characters that can help out Yanqing very well. First up we have Gepard, who is his best partner in my opinion. He already has a very high taunt value, which means that enemies are more likely to hit him instead of Yanqing. Then he can shield with his ultimate and technique as well, which can help Yanqing maintain his Soul Steel Sync. Gepard also have a trace that makes him more likely to get hit, which is very good of course, and he's also able to freeze, which means that the enemy is not able to attack you, and you'll be able to maintain your Soul Steel Sync. All these things is why I think Gepard is his best partner. However, you do need to keep in mind that Gepard is also a ice character, meaning that you will have less type coverage. The Fire MC is another character that I also think is very good with Yanqing. The Fire MC is able to taunt with his skill, meaning that all the attacks will go to the Fire MC instead of Yanqing. However, you need to keep in mind that the skill has a base chance to taunt the enemy and not a fixed chance, meaning that if the enemy have high resistance, they can resist to the taunt. The Fire MC is also able to make a small shield for the whole team, so that's of course very good as well. Overall, I think the Fire MC is a very great option for Yanqing. March is able to give a shield, however it does increase the aggro on the shielded enemies. That's of course not very great, because you do want to give him a shield, however you don't want him to get hit. It can be triggered to use March with Yanqing, however I do still think that it's very possible. Another valuable thing that March is able to do as well is she's able to freeze on her ultimate, which again will make the enemy not be able to attack you, so you will be able to maintain the Soul Steel Sync. Overall, March is a very good option, but you of course need to be careful with this shield and the increased aggro. Bronya is able to make Yanqing attack immediately again, which means that he can make use of the Soul Steel buff even more. Bronya is also able to give a lot of buffs from his skill and ultimate, which will make Yanqing do more damage. Overall, I think that Bronya is a very good option with Yanqing. Another character that I think is very strong with Yanqing and just strong in general is Welt. Welt is able to slow and delay the enemies, which means that you are able to lap the enemy with the Soul Steel buff, since they now can't attack you because they are slowed and delayed in the action meter. So if you want to use Welt with Yanqing, that can be an option as well. Tingyun is also a great option. She's able to give attack boost, which of course is always very good, and she's able to recharge the ultimate for Yanqing very fast, which means that you're able to buff yourself with the ultimate buff a lot more frequently. So overall, Tingyun is also a very good option. Another character that I want to just mention very quickly is Pela. She's able to defense shred, which means that you're able to do more damage to the enemies, and if you're lucky enough to have her E4, she then have a chance to reduce the enemy's ice resistance for 2 turns whenever you use her skill, which of course can make her and Yanqing do more damage. But again, it's an E4, so I don't expect everyone to have it. But if you're lucky enough to have it, then this plus the defense shred can make Pela a very good option as well. A team that I think is a very good team can be Yanqing with Gepard, then a healer, and then Bronya. A more free-to-play friendly team can be Yanqing with Fire MC plus a healer. That can be Natasha, or if you're lucky enough you can use Bailu, and then Asta for the speed and attack increase. I would suggest you using Tingyun instead of Asta for more type coverage, but of course it's totally up to you. Overall, I think that Yanqing is a very good DPS character and is definitely overlooked. He can dish out a lot of damage under the right conditions. However, I do know that a lot of people don't have him because he's not guaranteed. But if you have him, he's not a bad character and he can actually carry the whole team's damage. But that's pretty much it for this video. If I missed something or you disagree with something, feel free to leave a comment. Other than that, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, hit the like button, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.